It is June 6th, 2018. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I'm Glenn Rubenstein, joined by Raj Giri and Justin LaBar. Chris Featherstone coming along here in a little bit to talk SmackDown Live for June 5th, 2018. But first, the CM Punk verdict. It's in. It's resolved. Raj Giri's joining us to discuss that. So, Raj, you want to quickly recap what the jury found?
Yeah, so basically CM Punk and Colt Cabana were found not liable, basically. They ruled for Punk and Cabana against Dr. Aman. So, huge news for Punk and Cabana. Great news for them. But, you still got to wonder if WWE ultimately, if what Punk thinks is true, if ultimately they got what they wanted anyway. Because what Punk had been claiming is that WWE had been doing this, extending this, bankrolling Chris Amon to basically drain him of resources, and they cost him a lot of money, which they ultimately did. And they're not getting reimbursed for their court fees. At least it doesn't appear as of right now, unless Punk files another lawsuit. But other than that, I mean, the amount of money that they were asking for, at the end, I think there were four big things that really hurt Amon in this. I think the fact that he wasn't really hurt financially. He kept his job. It was mostly just Twitter trolls and people calling him out on social media. He didn't show any financial hardship. Just kind of the main thing was like he had a bad Thanksgiving and that was kind of it. His reputation was hurt with WWE fans. At the end they were asking for close to $4 million plus punitive damages. I think just looking at it, that had to have weigh in on the jurors' minds. I think Colt Cabana being a part of the trial didn't help anything because, they said he knowingly put up something that wasn't true, whereas Cabana said, it all kind of came down with that lump. Cabana said he saw the lump, so he did, so there was nothing that he could prove wasn't true that he put up. He didn't put anything that he knowingly knew was a lie. And also the big thing was the lump. They were really banking on the fact that Punk, didn't have a lump when it seemed pretty clear that he did. And several people testified to that. Punk even went on a radio show after he was released from WWE, after he signed with UFC, and showed like the indent of where they extracted, that lump. So it's a messy thing, but it's all done. And now CM Punk gets to fight in, 3 days.
Yeah. We'll see if he can add a second victory this week.
Yeah, Justin, what do you think of the whole thing?
Well, I'm not the biggest CM Punk fan, but reality is I am happy that he won. I think that is, from my armchair lawyer expertise, I think that is the way to go. You just said it, Rush. It's not like the WWE doctor was in between jobs and this harmed him for getting a new job. He's still employed. If had the law sided with the WWE doctor here, had the law said, yeah, you're going to be owed almost $4 million in this defamation for what was said on a podcast, that's the court of law partially validating internet trolls. And it opens up a nasty and scary precedent of, okay, in our already soft snowflake society, what else is going to be, said in a podcast that's now going to be able to be ruled to say, well, you've cost me this. Maybe not $4 million for a lot of people, but, and I'm not saying, and don't get me wrong, I think the WWE doctor, I think the WWE doctor, he's a legitimate guy. He felt like he had a legitimate case. But so I'm not trying to bash him, but there are a lot of other wackadoos out there that would have tried to then, go out and say, oh, this person said this about me on a podcast and this and that. It just could have got real messy. So I think for all of us podcasting, I think just for everything in general, I think it's, good for CM Punk and Colt Cabana for, not having to pay anything and everybody can just move on. Yeah, it would certainly probably hurt their bank account, hurt their state of mind and state of focus. So in that regard, I guess you could say, yeah, WWE got a victory out of that, if that's even a thing. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know if Punk's gonna be as successful Saturday, but we'll see.
Right? Yeah, Chris, what do you think?
First of all, a special shout out to Justin LaBar for using the word wackadoo. We'll start with that. Listen, my podcast has been running 6+ years strong right now, and I've probably said a lot of things that, is that someone would consider insensitive about a wrestler or a character or WWE in general. But it's just it creates a slippery slope. I think this whole thing just creates a slippery slope and I am nowhere near a CM Punk guy whatsoever. But I am happy that he won for me as a podcaster because this is one of those things that unless it's taken money from his pocket, I don't see really, I don't see much traction that he had from the very beginning.
Do you think they would have had any different success if Colt Cabana wasn't a part of the lawsuit, and they didn't go so hard on if there was a lump or not, but rather how badly it was exaggerated, and that cost Chris Amon, a lot of hardship, even though, it didn't show financially or as far as his job went that he had any. But having Colt Cabana part of it, I think it made it a difficult situation.
Well, I think, again, it goes back to the whole hardship thing. I mean, I'm about to become a doctor in forensics, so the first thing I think of is, okay, do you have actual counselor, psychologist, do you have documentation of seeing someone from a mental health specialist, point of view? If it didn't hurt you financially, then you go to the emotional part. What's your documentation that you were in dire, just emotional straits, and you saw multiple psychologists? I don't see where that would come in as well. So again, it just didn't seem like there was much to begin with in the first place.
What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what Colt Cabana's absence, if it would have swayed one way or the other. I just think in general, maybe I'll just say whether Colt Cabana was or wasn't there, I still think it would have been a hard thing for the WWE doc to win. I just, again, what I mean? Yeah, okay. So you had a bad Thanksgiving. Okay, well, we can feel bad for you, but we don't feel that's $4 million worth. I think it was even the closing arguments of either Punk's or Colt's attorney. Like they named one of the social media trolls and said, "What does this opinion really matter? This isn't somebody who's hiring you for a job. This isn't somebody who's a reputable source of grading doctors." So I mean, that's the end. That's at the end of the day. I mean, all of us, all four of us, if we, if all four of us had a legal precedent like this to jump on and say, "Oh, this was said bad about us in a Wrestling Inc. live chat of a podcast." I mean, I don't know. It's just dangerous. But I think either way, Colt Cabana or no Colt Cabana, I think this was pretty well said and done.
And do you guys, and we're going to be doing a live podcast after UFC 225 this Saturday. We're going to be covering the event live on Wrestling Inc. Podcast with myself, Chris, and Matt Morgan. Do you guys think this affects his fight at all against Mike Jackson?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, Punk seems like he's a pretty determined and strong-willed person. I mean, I know he said, he's still been training, doing whatever he has to do, obviously while still making the legal obligations he had to make here. I mean, I think he's either gonna get his ass kicked or he's gonna have a triumphant victory one way or the other. And that didn't matter whether of this. If anything, maybe this gives him a little bit more pep in his step this week that he got a victory in his somewhat personal life. So I don't know, but I don't really think it matters one way or the other, quite honestly.
Yeah, Justin, that's my angle with it too. I think that if anything, it gives him some positive motivation that he won the case, Yeah. So I don't see anything negative coming. I don't see any type of negative impact coming from this trial, seeing that he won it.
If he loses to Mike Jackson in the first round, it's not going to be, that court case really would have, if that court case hadn't happened this past couple weeks, I think it would have been a different outcome. No, it shouldn't.
Yeah. Be like that. He should do that. He should say something about that in his post-match interview. Once he gets annihilated by Mike Jackson, he should bring up the court case. Like, listen, I've just been emotionally spent this whole week, it's really been taking me over, and I just was out of the fight. I just lost it. So
maybe he should sue Chris Amon if he loses and say that Amon's lawsuit hurt his feelings so bad that he wasn't able to fight.
And there you go. And if he gets a concussion from the fight, he could blame.
There you go.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'll come out of the fight with a lump on his back.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that was in it was, we discussed this on the other podcast, was that Punk, he got a concussion in his last match at the Royal Rumble 2014. And, from a clothesline from Kofi Kingston. Now, WWE wanted to get him out of there, but they didn't send Kane out, to take him out until way later in the match.
No, that's actually not true. That's Kane was actually, I was sitting front row for that show, Raj. Kane was out there for most of the match. He was actually out there. He got out there really early. He was down. I was at the turn of the barricade towards the hard camera side, and Kane, and Kane was out there for like almost the whole match.
Right, but he was eliminated, and then he was told to go back in and get Punk out of there, and that's when he went back in and eliminated Punk.
Right, but when he eliminated Punk, he had been sitting on the floor for a lot longer earlier. Like they really wanted him out of there earlier. So that is contradictory, I think, to what Punk was.
No, I think what Punk was saying was he was refusing to be eliminated until it was time, which is probably true. But
okay, I'm sorry, I misheard. Yeah, no, okay, yes, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
But WWE allowed him to work so much of that match, knowing he had a concussion, but at the end, even after they knew and were trying to get him out, they still had Kane chokeslam him through a table.
Oh, I understand. Yes, no, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I remember with Kane sitting down there, and I remember like him making eye contact with Punk, and I remember Punk like visibly for the whole world to see. The cameras probably weren't on him, but all of us live could see him saying no at Kane, like, don't come in here. I mean, you're right. Then they still had him chokeslam. So yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying there.
Yeah. So that's seems like a dicey thing for WWE to have him go through and do the chokeslam through a table when the guy's concussed. So I'm assuming that Punk and WWE had an agreement where they couldn't sue each other when they came up with their settlement, and that's why the Doctor sued Punk, and that was kind of their retribution. But if they did, you would think Punk might have a basis for a lawsuit there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it's over. This could be it between Punk and the WWE. I mean, I don't know what else they can do at this point. So, definitely closing a chapter on a big part of his career. This was the big afterthought. So we're going to talk about SmackDown Live in a moment. It last night, man, may have set a record. Definitely a recent record for the most women's airtime on an episode of SmackDown Live. And, man, it was a really, really solid show. Before we hop into that recap, though, I want to take a minute and thank the sponsor of this episode, which is SeatGeek. So you've heard us talk about it before. SeatGeek takes away all the confusion, all the hassle, all of the frustration about buying tickets to your favorite events, be it comedy, sports entertainment, the theater, or concerts. Man, I love the SeatGeek app. You've heard us talk about it. Raj went to see Lady Gaga, the Denver Broncos, Bon Jovi. I went to see most recently Bananarama using SeatGeek. Went to see Richard Marx using SeatGeek, and all my 80s favorites. I love the SeatGeek app because it takes all the hassle out of the process and guarantees that I'm going to get a great deal and great seats for every event that I go to. We all know how frustrating it is when you want to get great seats. You're trying to deal with all the various sites, figuring out where the seats are located. Is it a good price? Is it decent? And what I love is that SeatGeek is so simple that with just a few taps, I can be anywhere and I can instantly find seats. Anything I want to go to. We're talking about going to see the English Beat soon live in concert. Going to get those tickets on SeatGeek. And what I love about it is that it is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. They save you time and money. SeatGeek does, by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find you amazing deals. And to get you the most bang for your buck, SeatGeek grades every ticket based on value to help you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget. Plus, and here's the best part, every purchase on SeatGeek is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Make SeatGeek your go-to app for finding the best deals on every type of ticket, from sports, wrestling, the theater, concerts, and comedy. And best of all, our listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code INC today. That's promo code INC for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Love these guys. So glad to have them as a sponsor. They are my go-to resource for every event ticket that I buy. Make them yours. Get that SeatGeek app. Use the promo code INC to save $20 off your first purchase. And we thank them for sponsoring the Wrestling Inc. podcast. So SmackDown last night. Guys, I saw some of the tweets about this. Not the best SmackDown ever, but compared to Monday Night Raw, Justin, what did you think of last night's show?
Well, yeah, I mean, compared to Monday Night Raw, it was award-winning. Yeah, it was a good show. Again, it's a broken record, but a nice 2-hour format. I think it was paced well. I thought SmackDown did some nice visual change, some visual risk from the contract signing backstage, being concise in the way it was shot and felt authentic, to Renee Young on the Mean Gene Okerlund platform off the side of the stage with Big Cass promo. I thought it was a lot of things to keep you interested.
Yeah, Chris?
Head and shoulders above Raw, that's for sure. I think Raw was so bad that it made SmackDown look really good, and I think that there wasn't necessarily too much to applaud with SmackDown. It wasn't bad, but I was a big fan of the main event and how they were still able to protect the Money in the Bank participants in that. But I'm sure we'll get to it soon. But Carmella by the minute is losing stock in my mind. I think so. I'm just I don't know. At first, I think I put her over before a couple times on the podcast, but I don't know, I'm just losing it with her.
Well, she came out, opened the show last night. They hyped it as Carmella's going to tell the truth about Asuka. And I don't know about you guys, but that segment to me equals, oh my God, it's going to be Bobby Lashley's sisters again. It's going to be Dolph Ziggler comparing Shinsuke Nakamura to Michael Jackson. When they do a I'm going to expose you segment, normally that's a recipe for disaster. Thankfully, they played it really safe. Carmella came out to the ring and basically showed a video recap that showed Asuka's dominant streak, that streak coming to an end, and then her getting beaten a few times on SmackDown. I agree, Chris, that the crowd didn't seem behind her for that entire promo. It was long. I mean, compared to how they opened Raw Monday night, I think Carmella spent about 3 or 4 times as much time talking in the ring as Seth did, and Elias and Seth and everyone did on Monday. But they did transition into a match, a 2-on-1 handicap match between Asuka, who came out to interrupt Carmella, and then Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, who came out to interrupt them. It was a 2-on-1 handicap, Mandy and Sonya versus Asuka, with Carmella on commentary. Carmella, what I like about her, and Justin, tell me what you think about this, is even if she lost the crowd at some point, she never lost her swagger. She sounds confident and keeps in character. She is not fazed by reaction, and that is a very hard skill for superstars to master.
I absolutely agree. I actually something to that same range of opinion I had thought about with her dating back to when she had Ellsworth with her and the women's Money in the Bank and all the controversy around that, is that in all of her promos she's had, I felt she does do a good job. She believes in her character. She believes in her. She doesn't seem to get thrown off, whether it's live, whether it's a taped she seems really comfortable. I think I absolutely agree with that. I think she's strong on the mic. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's always got the crowd in the palm of her hand, but she's strong on the mic because she doesn't get flustered, she doesn't lose her space, she doesn't look like she forgets, she doesn't look like she loses confidence or doubts the character she's playing, and that is a skill that is hard to master, but if you have it, it can take you a long way. So absolutely.
Yeah, that was my thing about the opening segment, is so both the opening of SmackDown and the opening of Raw went for 30 minutes each, but I think having Carmella on commentary, I mean, look, Monday night, I mean, those guys did a great technical job with that tag team match opening Raw, but I felt that between the promo last night on SmackDown and Carmella on commentary for Asuka versus Mandy and Sonya, I was more entertained by that first half hour of SmackDown, and I thought it was a better way to start the show, whereas with Raw, just putting on that technical wrestling clinic, I felt really bogged down the show from getting any momentum to get going. So after that, and Paige, I think, Chris, how do you think Paige is working out as GM? She feels like she's a lot more into it than Daniel Bryan was, as we're now learning for Daniel Bryan, that was like the most miserable time in his life, being the GM on SmackDown.
Yeah, I was cautious about Paige at first, but I think she's fitting the role better. She's confident. She looks like she wants to do it. Um, not not all the way sold, but I think that's I think as she's growing in that GM role, I think it's working out for her. I think the whole breaking away from Absolution helped her. Just kind of having that type of neutral voice for SmackDown Live, kind of favoring the baby faces a little bit, but not too much. So yeah, I mean, the more I see Paige in the role, the less critical I'm with her in that role.
Yeah, Paige comes off as assertive. Like she comes, like even stemming from the character of her when she performed in the ring, like you believe, like, okay, here's someone who she can get things done, and she's not going to be scared of any other female or male. So it definitely, I think she definitely comes off as, this is her show. She's not just reading from, she's not just reading from orders being handed down from her superior. Like, it really feels like she is in charge, and that, like, she would fight you, male or female, if you want to try to challenge her.
Yeah, compared to Kurt Angle, that seems like he's, an insult or two away from a complete nervous breakdown on Monday Night Raw as general manager. So I thought, this was fascinating last night that we had 5 women in a segment, and it did not involve women's tag team match. I mean, granted, it was a 2-on-1 handicap, but I think that's one of the rare times SmackDown has shown restraint. Asuka hit the Asuka lock and applied it to Sonya Deville, who tapped out for Asuka to pick up the win, building up Asuka versus Carmella at Money in the Bank. After that, we had The Miz backstage with the New Day, setting up a promo for later in the evening between them. Justin, Mr. Wrestling Insider, do you know the identity of Mr. Bootyworth?
I don't. I'll try to get on it, though.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think of that gimmick and how a New Day just keeps? I mean, you're the host of Pancakes and Power Slams. New Day, I think, is taking pancakes even further than Bootyos at this point.
Very interesting T-shirt, by the way. As soon as I saw that shirt that said Pancake Power, I said, a few more words. I'm gonna have to be like Chris Amon on you guys, but no, I think it's. I've always been a fan of New Day. I've said this many times, and it's worth saying again. From day one, I was a New Day fan. I've stuck with them through the hardships of trying to find themselves as a faction, as a trio. But yeah, I mean, they continue to add layers on their character, and Mr. Bootyworth, it got to the point where he couldn't stay in character because he starts smirking. But I think that's what New Day would do to you. It just seems like backstage in the New Day will just do that just around, even off camera, and to people backstage, it seemed like it'll be quite easy to smirk with the antics that the New Day is doing on or off.
Yeah, I'll say from an insider standpoint, from those who I have talked to, talent otherwise, I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about the New Day backstage. Like, everybody enjoys, whether it's talking to them, hanging out, playing video games on Woods' YouTube channel, traveling with them. I've never heard anybody in the last 3 or 4 years, wherever it's been that they've been a thing, anybody have anything bad to say about them, which in pro wrestling, that's not always an easy thing to claim for anybody.
Yeah. So they were setting up, of course, that main event for later in the evening, which would be the New Day versus The Miz, Rusev, and Samoa Joe. Bit of a surprising match, Harper versus Carl Anderson. So in anticipation of the tag team championship match that's happening at Money in the Bank, we saw Carl Anderson take on Luke Harper, and Carl Anderson got the win, leading me to believe the Bludgeon Brothers are going to retain at Money in the Bank if they're giving Gallows and Anderson this fighting chance. Justin, how do you think this is going with this feud and their continued use of the Bludgeon Brothers in this role?
So I love Harper and Rowan. They're talented guys. I guess I appreciate the commitment towards them. Like it hasn't dropped off. They're still committing to them, and they're still they're being they've been pretty dominant for the most part. I don't know. I still don't know if I completely. I don't know if I've settled on the whole Bludgeon thing. Like if it's like if the whole Bludgeon Brothers. Like if I don't know if I'm supposed to like if I don't know what level of serious I'm supposed to take it or what level of campiness. And then over on the other side, with Gallows and Anderson, we've talked about them on here. I've talked about them on my Wrestling Reality podcast. I had them on my podcast WrestleMania weekend down in New Orleans. They even said like they need a little bit of a reset. Like things have kind of gotten to a rut was the words I think Carl Anderson used. I like the fact they're getting TV time, all four of these guys, but I just don't know. I'm just not sure if anybody, them or more notably the decision makers, if they have like an end game in place of like, okay, here's where we want them to be positioned and credible wise come August. That's where I get lost at. Like, Carl Anderson versus Luke Harper. Okay, two good talents, a match you don't normally see, but I just wonder like, okay, what is this ultimately going to be doing in the grand scheme of things when this is all said and done?
Yeah, Chris.
I think this match was totally for the purpose of making Anderson and Gallows look halfway decent to put over the Bludgeon Brothers. I think there was nothing else to it. I'm a fan of Anderson and Gallows. I'm pulling for them as a team. I've said that before, but I don't think the WWE is that interested right now in putting them over as a team. I think they're being fed to the Bludgeon Brothers. As far as the Bludgeon Brothers are concerned, Harper's a fantastic talent, big fan of his. Rowan's okay, but the gimmick is total garbage, and it needs to go away fast. I mean, really, because I think Luke Harper more than anyone. Now Rowan's decent, but Harper is fantastic, and I think it creates a ceiling for Harper because it's a terrible gimmick. And it doesn't give Harper the opportunity to really it doesn't give Harper an opportunity to really showcase what we've seen him do, and he's so pigeonholed in this Bludgeon Brothers rubber mallet type of gimmick that, I just don't like how they're pigeonholing him with it. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to indulge this. As long as I watch wrestling on SmackDown, I'm going to have to indulge this for a little longer. I hope it goes away. I hope WWE realizes that it's a failed project, and my eyes are not ruined by seeing some rubber mouths.
Yeah, it's interesting too because WWE in the past week had just put out that it was like 7-minute piece on like getting to know them before they're in WWE, and they followed Harper around and talked about him being Brody Lee on the Indies, and kind of let his real personality shine. And he is I'm glad they highlighted the things that anybody who watched him or worked with him on the Indies part of WWE would know, which is he for a guy who's his size, he was this big tall guy, big giant, but he wants to he can work like a cruiserweight sometimes, and he has a great personality, a great sense of humor, super smart guy. So it makes you watch that video and it's so like, okay, this is a cool story I can get behind that they just told. And then they put him out there in a more stereotypical, he's going to be the scary bad guy with the beard, and it makes you wonder, okay, like, is it time? We've done Wyatt family a couple times. We've done Bludgeon Brothers. Is it time to let him be solo? And I'm not saying let him be John Huber, but let him be a little bit more. Let him talk a little bit more. Let him be a little bit more personality filled and work solo. Maybe work a style that we don't often see a guy who's 6'6" or 6'7" do. I wondered that it seemed like there was great reaction to that piece that WWE put out. So I'd like to consider the possibilities for Harper as a solo and for a little bit of a character tweak that's not so, fee fi fo fum, I'm scary, weird guy from the backwoods.
I think,
and he's much leaner than what he used to be. So even side by side to Eric Rowan, he doesn't look as monstrous as he used to be. So I think, to me, that's even a more of a reason to separate the team and have Harper go away as a single.
I think he could be a huge star as a babyface. I've said this before. I think there's something about him that he comes across as a big guy who's scary looking, but you listen to him talk in interviews. I mean, you see how he interacts with the fans. He's just so genuinely likable, and he's done a lot of acting work now. I mean, he's got some roles under his belt. I think he could be a huge star, but I think they're misusing him, you know, in all of his appeal. So I mean, we'll see. But look, I think the end game for all of this is Sanity. I think Sanity is going to debut, and that they're either going to be in a feud with the Bludgeon Brothers, or they're going to end the Bludgeon Brothers quickly. You know,
so they're coming as babyfaces. Do you think?
I don't know about that. I mean, but I think it's the idea of, you know, what's scarier than a monster, an even scarier monster. I think it'll be one of those sort of things where maybe they just come in and make quick work of the Bludgeon Brothers, and that's the last we hear of it for a while. But we'll see. I mean, with Sanity, this has been a terrible year for NXT call-ups. I mean, just in terms of how they're faring on the roster. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, when you've already got Authors of Pain that went to main event, isn't even on main event anymore. No Way Jose on main event. I mean, whatever they're doing with Almas, I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Sanity, I think, I mean, I know they're waiting, but I don't know. It seems like they've lost some momentum when they even stopped airing the promos. But enough about that. On the heels of the dance-off last week between Naomi and Lana, we got Naomi and Lana in mixed tag action with Jimmy Uso and Naomi and Aiden English and Lana last night. And, you know, on Twitter, I mean, I was seeing this reaction. Just, I mean, Lana, she's not the best wrestler in the women's division, but man, she's improved. And what did you think, Chris, of this match last night?
It was a decent match. I think, I mean, you know, the Usos and Naomi, they can carry just about anyone. And Aiden English can go as well. Lana's improving. You know, her character is much bigger than her wrestling abilities at this point. And I think that's she's got a long way to go. I definitely wouldn't, you know, make some type of knee-jerk decision to give her the Money in the Bank contract, because she's certainly not ready for that. But at the same time, you know, I think they're trying to make her. I mean, it's really tough for Rusev, Lana. Aiden English was getting heat. You know, people were booing him, but I think it's really tough for Rusev and Lana, because they're trying to make them heels. You know, but at the same time, they're getting the Rusev Day chance, which I've noticed that the Rusev Day chance isn't as strong as they used to be. So I think WWE, I think their type of formula may be working, but they're in a really tough spot. WWE want them to be one, you know, they want them to be heels, but you know they're getting cheered, and it's tough for them.
Yeah, Justin.
Well, you know, with Chris saying, you know, Lana, her character and her personality is bigger than her wrestling ability. That is true, and you'd rather be that way than role reversal. You know, they always say they can teach you how to do the moves and how to piece that stuff together and work well with other people. You can't teach that it factor. You can't teach that personality that draws people in. And in Lana, who has not been a good in-ring performer in the few times we've seen it over the years that she's been with WWE, people still gravitate towards her because of her, you know, everything from her bombshell good looks to the accent, to, you know, then, you know, being married to Rusev and whatever you might find appealing about her through the reality shows on E. So she definitely is improving. I thought it was an okay mixed tag match, but if you want to take a positive story away from it, it was that when Lana was in there, you can see some progression if you've paid close attention to her previous matches. And you know, she's working non-TV matches. She's, you know, so that definitely does help. That's where everybody, guy or girl, veteran or rookie, everybody gets to get better and hone things out and get their timing and get their, you know, get everything figured out with who they're working with, you know, on those house shows. So the fact she's doing that, getting more consistent in ring time, that's a big thing too. You know, I'm excited to see where it goes, but again, to the points that were just made, it is confusing when you have, you know, okay, you know, people want to latch onto this, and WWE kind of lets it happen, you know, putting out T-shirts and merchandise or what have you, and giving the TV time, but then they still position them as heels on the heel side of the fence. So just makes you wonder, like, just what is the agenda here? You know, is it because we need X amount of heels? Is our roster count we need X amount of heels so we can't afford to put them over on the babyface? I don't know. I don't know what the agenda is, but I'm encouraged by Lana.
The crowd reaction last night, that to me was more of a Lana reaction than a Rusev reaction. In fact, there was that point during the match when Aiden tried to get the Rusev Day chant going, and people were just kind of like, what are you doing, man? Like, it didn't get the cheap pop that it usually did. I thought people were genuinely into it for the two of them. And yeah, Lana Day shirts now, it absolutely makes sense to me. I mean, as far as entertainment goes, I mean, this may not have been the best technical wrestling match, but I was very entertained by this segment and this feud that they're setting up. You know,
and I'm all for care. I mean, I've said this plenty of times. I'm a traditionalist wrestling fan. Characters over actual mat in-ring wrestling to me all day long. But you know, there's only a certain amount of time where, you know, you realize someone is T.L. Hopper, you know, instead of the Undertaker. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it's like you got to realize the character only goes so far. You got to have something that comes with it. So you know, I think that she's probably past the T.L. Hopper level right now, but at the same time, WWE isn't making it easy for her to have a stronger character because they're making her a heel, and she's not able to express the character as much as she should or could. Rusev as well.
This has to be the first time in the history of any pro wrestling talk that T.L. Hopper and Undertaker was
T.L. Hopper
in the same sentence.
Yes.
Oh man!
Other than maybe somebody doing a recap of SummerSlam '96. Well, T.L. Hopper he went and got a Milky Way turd out of the pool in the pre-show, and then Undertaker got turned on by Paul Bearer. Otherwise, I can't think of how you would piece the two of them in the same sentence together.
There you go.
Last week, what were we talking about? Scotty Too Hottie making some...
Yes. Next week we'll talk about Damian Demento.
And then we'll talk about Brian Lawler not being able to pay his Hampton Inn hotel.
Yes, his hotel fees.
So this actually, I really like the ending of this match where Naomi hit Aiden with that crossbody out of nowhere, and then Jimmy rolled him up for the pin. I thought that was pretty good ending. I mean, it was good TV last night. Might not have been the best match, but as far as mixed tags go, I think this was actually better than 90% of the matches on the Mixed Match Challenge last night. So after that, backstage contract signing with Paige sitting at the table. But I like how they try to make it look like a boardroom, but you can still see it's one of those cheap card tables that they have backstage at every venue that they use multi-purposes. So we had AJ Styles faced off with Nakamura in the contract signing. Nakamura was gaslighting AJ a bit, and then finally AJ just off and slapped him before being restrained and dragged away. Justin, what did you think of this backstage contract signing as opposed to the in-ring version that they've done to death?
Maybe the highlight of the whole show. I thought I loved the change of it and not being the cheesy in the ring, same old formula we've seen, 1,000 times. I thought it was done well because it was kept short. It didn't go too long. Styles got a little bit of the promo just to remind everybody what it's all about, what they're feuding over. Nakamura did his Nakamura heel thing with the pen, which I did pop for. But then the frustration but then because of Nakamura's games of frustration, it brought AJ. It didn't come off again as cheesy. It just came off authentic. And then the slap, it wasn't like we did some big, we're setting the camera angle up so we can grab that perfect slap. I mean, it came off real. It felt like what it would be like as somebody is just the frustration just boils over, and these two guys having the history they have. So I thought it was well done. Certainly a highlight to me in the program that these two guys have had for the however many months now. Yeah.
Chris, you excited for Last Man Standing at Money in the Bank?
No, not really. I am excited to see all the times WWE plays when Nakamura said last man standing with the mouth guard, and the mouth guard dropped as he was saying standing, so it's kind of like standing. So I love when he does that. I always pop for that. But the segment, I pop for the beginning of the segment because to me it was like the modern day version of Hogan versus Andre, WrestleMania 3, President Jack Tunney in the middle. With all the execs from the WWE sitting on the table. I bought the ticket seeing that. I checked out a little bit throughout the segment, but at the end, I think it all made sense, and I think just the hard slap, which actually made Nakamura's face red at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was definitely some passion that came with the segment. So. It was a different way to change up. I'm always a fan of doing forwarding and pushing angles outside of the ring. So I think that this segment particularly did that, and we haven't seen that for a while as far as pushing segments or progressing segments outside of the ring. They used to do it all the time in WWE, but this time it did it, and I'm always a fan of that. So I think I think it successfully did what it was supposed to be based on those things.
I'll tell you though, I was distracted by AJ's hair is getting out of control. I think if this continues past Last Man Standing, there needs to be a hair match between these guys because AJ, I mean, it's absurd at this point.
I think that TNA was good for him. I think when he first came in the Royal Rumble, his hair was a lot shorter. Now it's over the top. Like it's just like he has to spend like 45 minutes a day on it. Like that's what it looks like now, and it takes away from like his macho-ness, like his, it's like, yeah, I'm AJ Styles, I'm the champ. Hey, AJ, I think your bangs covering your eye a little bit. I think we just got to be careful with that because the look is makes the total package as well. And AJ just hair's looking a little soccer mommy.
Yeah, I mean, I put that in the WWE for having Cena call that out in that feud 2 years ago with AJ and the soccer mom thing, because I don't know about you guys, haven't been able to get it out of my head since. Every time I look at him now, that's what I think.
I forgot about that, but thanks for reminding me, Glenn.
That was AJ hasn't had a lot of great feuds, but the Cena feud was great. And I think with Nakamura, it's gotten a lot better in recent weeks. So after that, okay, so I think these are the hardest matches to do. I don't know about you guys, but when you have two friends, two allies doing a match against each other, how do you make that competitive? How do you make that entertaining? They can't all be, maybe that's why in Rocky 3, that's why they didn't show us the fight between Apollo and Rocky. They let us imagine it in our heads after that freeze frame, because it's so hard to do these. We had Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair last night in a friendly matchup that went from friendly to competitive and went on a lot longer than I thought they were giving them time for. Justin, what did you think of this match last night and Becky getting a win?
Good for Becky. Certainly she needs it more than Charlotte does. And, Becky Lynch is she's just a very untapped commodity, I think, with WWE. Obviously, again, kind of the story is many. She had a nice run in NXT, but she's somebody who has a good look that stands out. She's good in the ring. I think she really hasn't got a lot of time. She hasn't got as much time on the mic to give her a fair shake. But I'm a Becky Lynch fan. I'd like to see more of her. I thought, again, if you ask me who needs to win more, she certainly needs it. She's not going to harm Charlotte. They are tricky matches to pull off, but I think they did okay with it in terms of, as you just said, went from friendly competition to amped up the competitiveness. But all in all, they still walk away, with respect to each other. But yeah, Becky Lynch, give me more Becky Lynch. Give me more Becky Lynch. Give me more purpose for Becky Lynch. Give me more Becky. Becky Lynch not only inside of the 20x20 and the realm of, okay, what's Becky Lynch going to do from bell to bell, but I think Becky Lynch is somebody, again, I think they've had her like in one of the Marine movies, Wahoo, Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, Marine 6 coming out this summer.
She's somebody who strikes me as like, she could be somebody who could be bigger for them in the grand scheme of things. She could be somebody who could be a player for them and representing them in the massive world of media. Absolutely.
Hey, I've said this before. She was the gateway that got my wife into watching wrestling. My wife really liked her, and now my wife watches everything. It's Becky just has such appeal. And you guys have seen when she does those sessions at Access. God, in 2016, I was in that line. That was the longest line I think I was in all of Access to get a photo with Becky Lynch. She had that championship run 2 years ago and then really lost momentum after that. But I'm hoping this is the start of a comeback for her. I think, she's a great untapped asset at this point. Chris, how about you? What do you think of Becky and her in this match last night?
Oh, big fan of Becky Lynch. I think she's one of the most underutilized talents in the entire WWE. I think she's got like the Dolph Ziggler complex, like a really good worker that the WWE can kind of maneuver however they want and just use her however they want. And, when they want to ascend her to the main event level, they'll kind of have her peak in there for a little bit and then, bring her back down to working good matches. And I think that's unfortunate. They did that with The Miz for a while, and they've done that with Dolph Ziggler for most of his career. I'm feeling that with Becky. And so I'm glad that she beat Charlotte. I think she definitely needed the win and made her look strong going into Money in the Bank. But unfortunately, I don't see anything coming out of it, which, Charlotte's on a slump too. And, when I see people on a slump, as far as losing a string of matches, especially particularly with Charlotte, it's like, I hope they're not doing that to have her win the briefcase, because I think of anyone, Charlotte is one of the least people who need that briefcase. And I'm hoping that the WWE is not doing that to have her get some momentum, because I've noticed they've done that, for a while, especially with people get the briefcase or about to win the briefcase. They did it with Daniel Bryan, during his briefcase run. And I'm really hoping that they're not using Charlotte to gain momentum, to get some sympathy in order to gain some momentum by winning the briefcase. I'm really hoping that they don't do that.
You got to knock her down a lot further for me to believe Charlotte's an underdog at this point. Because when she's on top, I mean, they book her as pretty untouchable for most of her reigns until those reigns come to an end. It just really hurts. It just really hurts Asuka to me. Like, I just, it's like you beat the streak and then you lose consecutively to Charlotte, and then you let the Iconics gain advantage over you, and we haven't seen the Iconics in weeks, and then you lose cleanly to Becky Lynch. So it's like, and on the grander scheme of things, this is hurting Asuka really more than anybody. Yeah. Well, I think Asuka has a good shot of beating Carmella, but I'm sure there'll be something fuzzy or funny. Maybe there's always that chance that they'll do something to allow Carmella to retain. Maybe a surprise James Ellsworth return. Who knows? Money in the Bank should be interesting. Yeah, hey, stranger things have happened. But no, look, I think if WWE is smart and they're really going to do, I thought, regardless of how you feel about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, I think it was very smart for them. Internally, it's a shame that it leaked, but internally, if that was their plan for a year for WrestleMania for Roman and Brock, and they spent time building to that was smart. So if their plan for next year is Charlotte versus Ronda, and they're going to spend a year building to that, the Charlotte, I think, has to go down before she comes back up again and ascends to that level. Becky, Asuka, I think there's a handful of top women that their role for the next year could likely be to be credible competition for both Charlotte and Ronda, to give them credible fights, build them further to if indeed they're going to main event WrestleMania next year. So
out of Charlotte and Ronda, if they do that at 35.
That's what? Sorry.
Who's the heel?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think Ronda, but they keep trying to book her as a babyface. I mean, and you look at that, oh God, she just looks so uncomfortable on commentary, even the other night, It's like she goes from smile to scowl and there's no in between.
See, I wouldn't book Ronda as the heel, because I think, being good on the mic is typically a heel thing, more than a babyface thing. And I definitely don't think that she's ready to really carry kind of like the heartbeat of the angle by the heel getting all the heat to pass on to the babyface. I think that Charlotte is well more equipped to handle that as the heel than Ronda is.
Yeah, we'll see. And with Charlotte, if Ric Flair's health permitting, I do not rule out them bringing him back in if Charlotte's a heel, and having Ric help build Charlotte to that, if that's the case for Mania next year. Anyhow, Becky won that match with the disarm her on Charlotte, and then they reconciled, hugged in the middle of the ring after. I mean, fans really, really seemed happy with this match. I thought it was a great match, and they didn't draw attention to it, but I think we'll see. There's Kate Foray does the breakdowns of women's airtime on Twitter, and I have a hunch that this was the most women's airtime we've seen, certainly in ring, last night on SmackDown. All of these matches went for a really long time, and they were pretty darn good. Following up that, we had Dasha Fuentes backstage with Samoa Joe. Justin, what did you think of Samoa Joe's promo? Vicious man with a broken or backwards moral compass.
I love the phrase backwards moral compass. I can get behind that.
Yeah. Chris, you think he keeps asserting himself on his way to a potential Money in the Bank win?
Oh, certainly. Joe's money on the mic, and I've said this before, for some reason in 2018, I'm just noticing how good he is. I know that he's always been, for the most part, solid on the mic for me, but for some reason this year he stepped it up noticeably, and so he just continues to deliver.
Yeah. So how do you think Big Cass, Chris, asserted himself following that with Big Cass's in-ring segment with Renee Young last night?
Well, no, he had a Mean Gene Okerlund style segment. It was on the stage, away from the room. But I think that if it was about 7 minutes shorter, it would have been good. But it ran way too long, and it was. I think it helped him for the first 5 or so minutes, but after that, it was just like, please stop, Cass. Stop. That's how I was feeling throughout the whole time.
Yeah, Justin, do you think that after all these years of Big Cass having to stay silent behind Enzo, Cass just feels he has something to prove and how much he can talk?
I don't know if it's that, but I agree. And I'm a big Cass fan. I seem to be maybe in the minority of people who are behind his heel run and thinking he makes a good heel. It was too long. It definitely could have been shorter. I did like the fact they went to the old Mean Gene platform, and I like him then, kicking Renee out. That's just a simple thing to do to get some heat. Somebody asked me, because somebody asked me on Twitter yesterday during the show. They said, "Is this like punishment? Is this promo punishment to Cass for going rogue?" And I laughed, but I said, "No. They gave him airtime on a live show to cut a heel promo on their most over babyface, Daniel Bryan. So it's not punishment. They're following through with this. Obviously, they're continuing this feud on, but it needs to be shorter. Hell, I don't know. Maybe bring Enzo back and let Enzo be his barking dog manager. Let him be heels. I don't know, but I like Cass as a heel. It just makes sense. He's this big guy that has a Napoleon complex almost. I love it. I get behind it. Are the promos 10 out of 10? Are they A+? No, they aren't. But again, that comes with repetition. You got to keep going. I like Big Cass. I'd rather have a little bit more custom. Oh, I know that's Big Cass's music rather than generic rock number 3.
Oh my God, it's creator wrestler music from WWE 2K18.
No, I wouldn't even say 2K18. I'd probably say like WWE Attitude back in the day.
Yeah, music's a little rough, but should have been a shorter promo. But I'm all for the Big Cass heel run.
I said he keeps pushing the 7 feet tall thing. Just
good. It helps him. I think his character that he's like, I'm bigger than you, I'm taller than you, and I agree. I like Cass as a heel. I was one of the very few people that didn't have an issue with Cass feuding with Daniel Bryan. I think this is a good filler feud. I think it helps Cass, even if he loses both at Backlash and Money in the Bank. You're feuding with Daniel Bryan, so his first singles feud in 3 years is against Big Cass, so that's good. I'm very critical of Daniel Bryan appearing so much after coming back in the ring, but at the same time, you're feuding with Big Cass, and Big Cass and Daniel Bryan as a feud. Hey,
it will be punishment if Cass loses inside of like another 2 or 3 minutes to Bryan and Cass. That will be punishment if that happens.
Yeah, the immediate tap out.
If Big Cass taps out and ends quicker than CM Punk, then we have huge problems going on.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we shall see. So backstage, Sin Cara interrupted or attacked by Andrade Cien Almas, setting up, furthering their feud. You guys think this is going to get better than the pre-show at Money in the Bank, this match?
Yeah, I can say pre-show. Yeah. I think it'll be a good match, though, but it'll be pre-show.
I agree. How do you think Andrade is faring, Justin, on the main roster?
So far, okay. Still kind of, I guess, early to tell. I like that they did a little bit of build, a couple weeks worth of outside the arena build to him showing up, and Zelina Vega, that she really helps complement the whole presentation. This could be a really great match wherever it's placed. I actually had somebody on my podcast this week in the social media segment where I take questions. Somebody said they saw Almas versus Sin Cara at a live event house show, and they said that it was fantastic, and that it could steal the show if it's given the right time and placement on a WWE pay-per-view. So we'll see. I like Almas' character. I don't like it when people say, oh, well, they needed, I don't like it when people assume, okay, we need this is casting and we only, like, okay, he's the Del Rio, he's the cocky Mexican, and I don't think it has to be that pigeonholed of a casting thing, but I do like his character. I think he holds it well. And again, Zelina Vega is a huge part of that presentation. So, the Sin Cara thing, I don't expect much. I mean, good matches hopefully to come out of him, but I don't expect nothing more than it just being something to establish himself to the audience, just to get some wins under his belt. And if he stays healthy and they keep with it, Almas could be a major player for sure.
Yeah, we shall see. The main event last night was the New Day versus The Miz, Rusev, and Samoa Joe. Now, the New Day are dragging out, selecting which one of their members will go on to compete in Money in the Bank. This is the main event last night. I thought, man, I would have been really happy with this show if Becky versus Charlotte was the main event, and I thought that just having this after it, I mean, further elevated it. Even as we're talking about it now, I mean, if this was an average SmackDown, this was just pretty great for an average show. What did you think of the main event, Chris?
Oh, I was a huge fan of it. I mean, the New Day has been on fire. I mean, I think if I would have like a top few people who are just like red hot right now, I think Seth Rollins is a clear-cut number one. I would put New Day right now, and I just think that's those 4 people in 2018 has really stepped up, and I think and I like the fact that they're dragging who's going to be a part of the match, because it builds intrigue, and I'm always a fan when you slow burn things. I think that's a traditional route, and I think it loses a bit luster if we already know. The fact that we're still kind of cliffhanging to the next show and the next show, I think that's I think that's old school one-on-one.
Yeah, Justin.
I like the intrigue of drawing out who's going to be the member from New Day, and I think I said it weeks ago on this podcast, and I'll say it again. I would love the possibility. We keep wondering, okay, what's next for New Day? They've done, they've held the tag titles how many times, and they've gone heel, they've been face, they've been heel, they've been face. So it's like, okay, if we're gonna keep them together, like what's the next thing? I would love for one of them to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, and that briefcase to be potentially used in the Freebird rule. I would love it. I think that would just be so exciting to see the 3 of them joking and friendly, oh, I came closer than you, and just and teasing it for however long they want to tease it. And then, hell, if one of them actually does cash it in, imagine the world title being floated around Freebird style by them. I mean, again, it's we have 2 world titles, so and we're, and the amount of programming we're in this era of WWE, it's something like that could certainly be entertaining. So I'm all for the New Day. I like the drawing out, and I'm very excited to see if they take this a step further.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that real quick. I think even the Freebird rule, I think, should be exercised in Money in the Bank too. I think there should be like the whole,
they how tag in and out.
They did how they did the boxing chair, what they did with Big E, and they poured the syrup on them. I think that like each and all 3 of them should like interchange in the match. I mean, like Big E starts first, and he's on for like 6 minutes, and he comes out. He sits in the chair. Kofi comes in and goes at it for a little bit. He goes back out. Xavier, and they just keep interchanging within each other throughout the match, and then eventually, because of that, they have the most energy, and they get the case, and they do the Freebird rule that way. I think that would be hilarious.
And then we have to have Constable Corbin come over to SmackDown and set Paige straight.
Right.
And that was the high point on Monday night. I mean, meanwhile, we're talking about SmackDown. There were a lot of high points last night. This was a sleeper show that was pretty darn good. But I agree. I mean, look, with Sanity and the Bludgeon Brothers, if they're gonna dominate the tag team division, giving New Day the Money in the Bank briefcase is a great way to have them sidestep that competitive tag division and not lose any luster.
Well, and it also allows, we all agree, I think a lot of us agree that, like the New Day, that all 3 of them have built their personalities up to where all 3 of them can sell me on a singles feud. They don't have to always roll as a pack. They could be involved in singles feuds separately, but you still kind of like the thought of, okay, maybe Kofi, Big E, and Xavier all have separate feuds singles wise, but they're still obviously New Day. They're still coming out in the same together in unity with the music and the gimmick and everything. So by them being able to do a Freebird thing with the Money in the Bank, it's the best of both worlds. It allows that unity that they do so well, that chemistry, but it also gives them some individual solo focus, having individual solo matches and not always tag matches.
They're like the Destiny. Oh, sorry.
They can tease the cash-ins too. Like one week, Xavier come out and tease the cash-in, and
that's what I mean. Absolutely.
And then another week, Big E comes out and teases the cash-in, and the next week, Kofi comes in and teases the cash-in.
It's a great. And you can do it on TV, but it's a great filler for live events. Absolutely. You could literally have, they do 3 live events a week before they do TV. They could do a different one and switch it up, so you won't, so one night it's in this town, it's Big E trying to. It'd be something fun for the crowd to pop, and you could do that for an entire loop of the country for the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to say I kind of like that better than Rusev and Lana being Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank. Even I think there's potential in that. So this match last night ended with Kofi flying off the top for the midnight hour on the Miz, and Big E covering Miz for the win. This was a really good match. All in all, I mean, as we're talking about it now, this was a pretty solid episode of SmackDown. Chris, your final thoughts on the episode?
I think it was good. I think it was, like I said, leaps and bounds better than Raw. I give a solid B. There wasn't anything that really took me away from it, and I think most of it kept me watching.
Justin?
Yeah, I agree. B minus. Again, I think the contract signing to me was just a highlight, just because again it took a risk, it took a different turn on something so overdone. And I thought that the energy and the authenticity of the rage between AJ and Nakamura, which is needed, came off well. But overall, good show. Didn't have any extended period of the show where I went, okay, I'm really getting bored.
Yeah, for me, that's the key. Is it good TV? Did this entertain me as anything else I watched on television this week? And I definitely put last night up there. And while we're talking about it, guys, I can't remember the last time that Raw or SmackDown put on an A or an A- show even. Nothing really stands out, when I think back to it, reeling back maybe the Festival of Friendship or Roman and Braun backstage with the stretcher in the ambulance spot. Like it's been a while. So this last night is as good as it's gotten for a very long time. And I really dug it. If you're one of the people that listens to the podcast but does not always watch Raw or SmackDown, I would say last night's episode's worth checking out. Advanced the stories well enough and definitely was entertaining in its own way. And that's a lot better than we could say for Monday Night Raw most weeks. So, Fox.
I think SmackDown is being more marketable to Fox than Raw is to USA right now, based on content. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think, this would be solid Friday nights on Fox. And I think would last night, let me put it this way. In comic books, they always talk about every issue of a comic is somebody's first issue of a comic book. If last night was somebody's first time watching SmackDown Live, I think they would tune in next week to see what happens.
Yep.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Chris, what do you want to plug before we take it home here?
Pancakes and Power Slams. 323rd episode last night. I had NWA. It was my Sports Illustrated audio version. I'll have a piece on Sports Illustrated from my Nick Aldis interview.
Nice.
The audio version was on the show last night. It was a pretty long interview. It was really good. He tackled a lot of good stuff. So most of it's going to be on the SI article, but all of it wasn't. So, just check out the entire interview last night on the show. Check out Pancakes and Power Slams every week. We have a wrestler on the show every week. Follow me at Crave Wrestling. Follow the Pancakes and Power Slam show at Crave Wrestling. Follow me at Chris Prolific for all of your wrestling needs.
And Justin, what do you got going on?
If you're a fan of Bruce Pritchard and the Something to Wrestle With podcast, they're coming to Pittsburgh July 15th. That is the day of Extreme Rules, and I'll be hosting a live show. 30 years worth of stories in WWE, your questions, and plus I usually always have some surprise guests. So again, July 15th, it'll be a Diesel nightclub on the south side. Must be 21 or over. It'll be wrapped up by 5 p.m., so plenty of time to get over Extreme Rules. The only place you can get tickets, TicketKingOnline.com. A few tickets left, I believe, just under 40. So VIP, reserved seating, meet and greet, or GAs. Make sure you join us.
Excellent. So Saturday night, Wrestling Inc. will be back with Chris, Matt Morgan, and Raj Giri. They're going to talk about the UFC event that's happening Saturday, which includes CM Punk's second fight in UFC. We'll see if the discussion of it is longer than the match itself.
I heard CM Punk may be joining us as well.
Well, we'll see. This is a pretty good week for CM Punk. I think he seemed very happy yesterday. I think if you're ever going to go up and call him Phil and ask him to sign something you're going to turn around and sell on eBay, this is probably the week to do it.
Just don't do it next week.
Yeah, not next week. Oh, man. I'm Glenn Rubenstein. You can find me on Twitter at Glenn Rubenstein. I live tweet along with SmackDown and Raw, sometimes NXT as well. So if you enjoy this wit and insight, believe me, you'll get a whole lot more of it on my Twitter account. And, of course, follow the official Wrestling Inc. Twitter as well. Until next time, folks, I'm Glenn Rubenstein, and we'll see you back here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.